All right, there we go. Sorry, it took a little bit here. So we'll begin with
Namo
Namo
tassa.
Tassa. Okay.
Namo tassa
Tassa
bhagavato arahato
arahato
samma
sambuddhassa.
sambuddhassa. Namo
Namo
tassa
tassa
bhagavato
bhagavato
arahato
arahato
samma
samma
sambuddhassa.
sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa
Tassa
bhagavato
bhagavato
arahato
arahato
samma
samma
sambuddhassa.
sambuddhassa. So do it a little bit more. There we go. I'm glad to be talking tonight about something that the Bhikkhunis had the joy of talking about earlier today. We have a Bhikkhuni Sutta study group about once a month. And the sutta we looked at today was in the Majjhima Nikaya, number 127. And it's this lovely, lovely sutta where Anuruddha gets to talk about the difference between a kind of expansive meditation using the Brahma Viharas and an unbounded emancipation using metta. And the suttas about Ceto Vimutti. The questions are around Ceto Vimutti, which is translated as mental liberation or emancipation of the heart or samadhi obtained from fruition. So this is quite far in our practice, but we can work our way toward that using the Brahma Viharas. And I like to translate Ceto Vimutti as liberation of the heart or the heart's release through the Brahma Viharas is the way that I usually work with working toward Ceto Vimutti. So this morning we had lively discussion, and this evening I'd like it to be more contemplative, that we use these words and the practice that's in this sutta. So don't go rush out and look at the sutta immediately. Instead, let's sit with some of the teachings from the sutta and inform our practice with that. So the two kinds of practice, there was the question to Anuruddha, is there a difference between this appamada, this unbounded liberation of the heart, and the other one is maha, my notes are mahagata Ceto Vimutti, which is the exalted or expansive liberation of the heart. So the person asking the question thought that they were probably the same thing, and that they just differed in what they were called. And that might be a reasonable assumption to make, because in that chant that we often do of, I will abide, pervading one corridor, with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I know I abbreviated that. The ending part has the exalted, which is this ahagata, which I prefer to call expansive. And then it also has the apamana, the unbounded, the without limit, immeasurable in it. And they're right next to each other in that chant. So it might be reasonable to think that they were the same thing. But Anuruddha clearly says, no, they're not the same thing. And so we'll practice one and then lead into the other. And the one we practice first is the Mahagata, which is the extent. In the sutta, it's imagining that you're sitting at the root of a tree. Now, the Buddha says, Go to the root of a tree or an empty hut and sit down with legs crossed. Bring mindfulness to the fore. And in the case of the Brahmaviharas, you might bring into your heart that sense of goodwill. Or the one I've been practicing more lately is that sense of balance, equipoise. So you're welcome to use any of the Brahmaviharas, bringing into the heart this sense of goodness and goodwill, evenness, balance. And then in the sutta, it talks about letting that extend out. You know, we're sitting, imagine you're at the root of a tree. I imagine myself at Evergreen, the forest that's near the Evergreen College, near the Vihara here, sitting at the root of a tree. And imagine that this warmth of heart, this steadiness of heart, extends to the extent of the roots of that tree. So radiating out, you can imagine there's all these wonderful little beings that live in this ecosystem around the tree. And that this warmth of the heart, the steadiness, radiates out to that extent around that tree. And then in the sutta, it says, and extends out to the extent of 2 or 3 lengths of the roots of trees. So imagine a couple of trees around you and it encompassing out through the roots as far as those trees and as far as their roots extend, and then to a third tree and as far as its roots extend. That the warmth of this heart extends as far as the roots of 3 trees. And if you're not in the Olympia area and know this forest that I'm speaking of, you can pick anywhere that you are. Now, this extent, if you don't have trees available, you can say the extent of the room that I'm in, the extent of the room next to my room, and out to the extent of the house or the building that I'm in. This is an expansive practice. So then the sutta suggests that it be to the extent of 1 village. So maybe you can think of that as the district within your town or city, or if it's a small town, the whole town. And then you can imagine it extending out to the whole of that town or city. You can feel how it expands from the extent of this 1 tree root system or this 1 room out throughout that whole area you're sitting, the building, the structure, the forest, and out into the township or the city. I first learned this practice in Minnesota, and I had a real clear picture of the city, Minneapolis, and could just imagine it going through all of the streets and touching all of the people and all of the buildings, touching all the squirrels and all of the trees, the birds, all of the beings out in the waterways. And if you've been practicing in this kind of way, you may be doing it this quickly. But once I become silent, if you want to repeat these steps at a pace that works best for you, please do so. So I'll keep going with this particular run through just as a way to practice. So then the sutta goes to the extent of 2 or 3 villages, how wide those would be. So here in Olympia, I might think of it extending all the way down to Portland and all the way up to Seattle. I might use that line of the highway running between those. Olympia is about partway between. And just taking in the extent of those 3, not so much villages of Portland and Olympia and Seattle. We'll scoop up Tacoma and Lacey along the way, and Vancouver as we head south. That this steady warmth, radiant smile of the heart radiates out to the extent of whatever it is for the town or city you're in and the surrounding area, the surrounding cities. And then you can extend it out. In the case of the sutta, I was talking about kingdoms. So maybe we talk in terms of states or districts or counties or whatever the name of jurisdictions is wherever you are in the world. So here that might be all of Western Washington. For somebody in California, if they were in Southern California, all of the South of California. If they're in the North, all of the North. And then letting it seep out into the rest of the state or province or whatever it's called in your area. This warm, balanced, stable state of the heart. The steadiness and warmth, the kindness, the well-wishing, the good care extends throughout that whole jurisdiction of maybe the state you're in. And then in the sutta, it talks about extending to 2 or 3 kingdoms. So in the US, maybe that's going to some states, or if you're bounded by Canada up into the province above, or if you're bounded below by Mexico down into the districts in Mexico. And then across the entirety of whatever nation you're in. Leaking across any borders. This warmth, this steadiness of the heart. This well-wishing, this kindness. And the sutta then says, to all the land surrounded by ocean. So that can be the continent you're on. All of the countries within that continent. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, you can include that whole region. No borders, no boundaries, except that the ocean surrounding this region. letting the kindness, the well-wishing of the heart extend across the entire continent. And the sutta stops there, but I think we can include all of the lands and all of the waters on this planet. In some way, we're really reaching into the next practice. In all directions, the immeasurable. At the time of the Buddha, they did talk about the Deva realms and the other realms, but they really weren't looking out into the planets, as far as I know, or into the solar system in quite the same way that we think of it today or have knowledge of it. So as you notice, as you're spreading this warmth, this steadiness, this brightness of heart, the well-wishing, the goodness, that it's gone in all of the directions. Now, the first quarter, maybe you think of that as all the beings to the north, wrapping around the globe to the north, to the east, to the south, and to the west. But also including all the beings that live below, in the soil, in the seas, and all the beings that live above in our ecosystem, the tops of the trees, flying through the air. And maybe we're including the devas now. But we can also sense that unbounded reaching out into space. Nothing left out. Nothing left out. Completely unbounded, without measure. I will abide, spreading a heart full of loving kindness to one direction and to the second, and to the third, and to the fourth. In the same way, above, below, across, everywhere, all around, spreading a heart full of loving kindness to the whole world. Abundant, expansive, limitless, free of enmity and ill will. So you can continue with these practices and go back to whatever stage you'd like to experience further. Whether that's the extent of the roots of one tree in real detail, or 2 or 3 trees, or 2 or 3 rooms or a house, or out into the surrounding forest or town, city, until you've reached the entire planet and done away even with the concept of planet. And then it just touches and includes everything. So this will be our practice for the next 30 minutes or so. With a few minutes left of our meditation time together, just notice the quality of the heart right now. And if you practiced this Brahmavihara practice in an expansive or unlimited way, just recall, where was it easy to radiate this warmth, this goodness of heart? And was there anything you could do if the heart was constricted, so that you could spread that warmth in an immeasurable, unbounded, undifferentiated, leaving nothing out way? Just taking note of how it was in this meditation. And whether you were practicing with the Brahmaviharas or not, bringing up that warmth in the heart so that we can share the merits of this practice, of this time of meditation with all beings everywhere. Bring your palms together if you wish. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be at ease. I'd like to join in the homage to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. You're welcome.
Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivadin Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sangham Namami.
May this practice be for your long-term benefit and liberation of the heart.
Have a good night, good evening.
Or any time of day you're watching.